The man in the red jacket. I used to think holiday shopping was harmless chaos, crowded malls, long lines, tired parents, Christmas music looping forever. But what happened to me at Yorkdale Mall in Toronto last December still keeps me awake at night. It started on a Saturday afternoon. The place was packed, the kind of packed where you can barely move without brushing against someone. I was carrying gift bags for my niece, walking toward the food court, when I noticed a man staring at me from across the crowd. He wore a bright red winter jacket. Hood up. No shopping bags. No phone. Just staring. At first, I thought maybe he was looking at someone behind me. So I kept walking. But when I stopped to adjust the strap on my bag, I felt that same heavy stare, and there he was again. Closer now. Maybe 20 feet away. I tried to brush it off. People get weird in busy malls. But something about him felt wrong. Like he wasn't lost or waiting for someone. He looked like someone studying a target. I turned into indigo to lose him. I walked through the aisles, pretending to browse books, glancing over my shoulder. At first, I didn't see him. But then, a reflection in the glass of a bookshelf showed that same red jacket standing at the end of the aisle. Perfectly still. Facing me. I froze. I wasn't imagining it, he was following me. I walked faster, weaving around people, stepping into another aisle. My heartbeat was so loud I could barely hear the Christmas music anymore. I peeked again. Gone. For a moment, I felt relief, until I stepped into the kids section and nearly collided with him. He was right there. Standing less than an arm's length away. Up close, I saw something I hadn't noticed before, his eyes. Wide. Unblinking. Like he wasn't seeing me as a person, but something else. I muttered sorry and tried to move past him. He stepped to the side, blocking me. Then he said something I'll never forget, his voice low, almost calm. You dropped something. I looked down. There was nothing on the floor. Nothing I could have dropped. Before I could react, he reached into his pocket. Very slowly. Too slowly. Like he wanted me to watch. I felt my stomach drop. Everything in me screamed run. And then, he pulled something out of his pocket. For a split second, I thought it was a weapon. But it wasn't. It was my work ID badge, the one I kept clipped inside my backpack. There was no way he could have taken it without me noticing. No way he should even have known I worked at all. My legs went weak. He held it between two fingers, smiling like he expected me to thank him. Lose things easily? He asked. His voice didn't match his expression. The smile looked friendly, the tone sounded flat, detached, like he was reading from a script. I grabbed the badge out of his hand, mumbling something like thanks, and walked away as fast as I could without running. My hands were shaking so badly the card almost slipped from my fingers. I ducked into the nearest store and hid between clothing racks. I waited. 5 seconds. 10. 20. I peeked through the hangers. He was standing outside the store, facing in, like he knew I'd be somewhere inside. I didn't think. I just moved. I slipped through a side exit near the fitting rooms, walked fast through a service hallway, and came out near the movie theater. My heart was slamming in my chest so hard that I felt lightheaded. I called mall security. It felt embarrassing, but something about this guy wasn't normal. They told me to stay put, someone would meet me within 2 minutes. But before security arrived, I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Echoing down the hallway I'd just come from. I turned around. He was there. Still in the red jacket. Hood up. Hands in pockets. walking straight toward me with the same blank expression. I backed up until I hit the wall. "No more hiding," he said quietly. Like he'd been chasing me for hours, not minutes. "How did you get my badge?" I asked, my voice shaking. He stopped walking, tilted his head slightly, as if the question confused him. Then he smiled. "People don't pay attention," he said. "Especially during the holidays." That smile finally broke whatever was holding me in place. I ran. And this time, I didn't look back. I sprinted through the hallway into a busier section of the mall and spotted a security officer walking toward me. I yelled for him. The officer immediately stepped between me and the hallway entrance, putting one hand on his radio. He asked me to point out the man. But when we both looked toward the hallway, it was empty. Security checked the cameras, but the footage made everything worse. In the video, I was walking through the mall alone. No man in a red jacket behind me. Not an indigo. Not in the hallway. Not near the theater. Nothing. It looked like I was running from no one. I told them that was impossible. I saw him up close. I spoke to him. He handed me my badge. One guard asked if maybe I'd lost the badge earlier and someone just turned it in. But no one could explain how it ended up in the pocket of a man who didn't exist on camera. They walked me to my car just in case. And while I didn't see the man again that night, the story didn't end there. 2 days later, at around 11 p.m., I got an email from an unrecognized address. No subject line. Inside was one sentence. "You drop things easily." Attached to the email was a photo of me walking through the mall. The angle was the exact spot where I first noticed the man watching me. I forwarded it to mall security and the police, but the sender used a temporary email service that disappeared within hours. They couldn't trace it. I changed my locks, deleted every public social media account, started checking over my shoulder everywhere I went. And to this day, almost a year later, I still have no idea who he was, how he got my badge, or how he took that photo without ever appearing on a single mall camera. But here's the part that scares me the most. Last week, I found something in my mailbox. No envelope. Just a small plastic item wrapped in tissue paper. My new employee badge. The one I keep inside my coat pocket. The one I am absolutely certain I had this morning when I left for work. There was a sticky note attached. 2 words. Still watching. The overnight gift return. I used to work the overnight shift at a big box store in Washington State. The kind of place that stays open until midnight during the holidays and reopens at 6 a.m. for the extended gift return hours. Most nights were boring. Restocking shelves, cleaning aisles, checking return bins for items customers dropped off late. But one December night, the week before Christmas, something happened that still makes the hair on my arms stand up. It was around 12:45 a.m. The store had been closed for nearly an hour. Only 4 of us were inside, me, the shift manager, and 2 stockers. The building was quiet except for the hum of the freezers. I was assigned to the front-end returns area, organizing all the items people had brought back that day. There were the usual things: wrong sizes, broken toys, unopened appliances, cheap Christmas lights that stopped working. Then I saw something that didn't belong. A gift bag sitting on the counter. Red, shiny, with a snowflake pattern. There was no return slip attached. No receipt. And it definitely hadn't been there 30 minutes earlier. I asked my manager if he brought it up from the floor. He said no. So I checked the cameras. This is where things got weird. Around 12:28 a.m., while the doors were already locked, the footage showed nothing. The bag just appeared. 1 second the counter was empty. The next frame, not even a full second later, the gift bag was sitting there. The manager said maybe someone dropped it off right before closing and we just didn't notice. I wanted to believe that, but I knew the final customers personally. I checked all of them out. Nobody carried a bag like that. Still, I opened it. Inside was a small box wrapped in silver paper and a handwritten tag. For returns. That was it. No name. No explanation. I unwrapped the box. Inside was a snow globe. A beautiful one, actually, a small house in the woods, snow swirling around it when you shook it. The base was dark wood, carved with tiny pine trees. But when I looked closer, I saw something that made my chest tighten. Inside the snow globe, on the tiny porch of the tiny house, was a little figure. A man. Wearing a long dark coat. Shaped almost exactly like the coat I was wearing that night. I laughed it off at first, thinking maybe all snow globe figures looked like that. But when I turned the base around, I noticed something engraved in the wood. Deck 22 to 12:45 a.m. That was the exact time on the clock at that moment. 12:45 a.m. December 22nd. I felt a cold wave move through me. Before I could even call my manager over, the overhead speakers crackled. The ancient intercom turning on by itself. A static buzz. Then a sound. Not a voice. Not music. Something else. Breathing. Slow. Heavy. Right against the microphone. The manager shouted from across the store, asking who turned on the system. No one had touched it. The breathing continued for a full 10 seconds, then stopped suddenly. The intercom clicked off. We all stood there, staring at each other, trying to pretend it was some kind of glitch. It wasn't. Because when I looked back at the snow globe, the tiny figure on the porch had moved. It was no longer standing by the door. It was now facing directly forward. Facing me. I dropped it on the counter, backing away. My manager grabbed it, confused, shaking it like he expected something to fall out. But the figure didn't go back. It stayed in that same position, staring outward. Then one of the stalkers yelled from the next aisle over. "There's another one." We ran to him. And sure enough, sitting perfectly centered on a shelf that had just been cleaned minutes before, was an identical snow globe. Same house. Same carving. But the figure inside wasn't wearing a coat. It was wearing a hoodie. The exact color the stalker had on. He went pale and stepped back so fast he tripped over a pallet. We started checking the aisles. And we kept finding more. One in electronics. One in seasonal decor. One in the pet aisle. Each snow globe had a tiny figure that resembled one of us. And each base had a timestamp. All matching the exact minute we found them. But the last one, the one we found near the locked front doors, was the worst. Because the figure inside wasn't any of us. It was someone standing outside the store. Someone wearing a mask. Staring in. And the timestamp carved at the bottom said, 12:59 a.m. now. We looked at the clock. 12:59. And then we heard the front doors rattle. Someone, or something, pulling on them from the outside. Really hard. The manager shouted for us to get back, but before he could finish, there was a loud bang on the glass. Like a fist. Then another. Harder. The stalker whispered, "Do we call the police?" But the banging stopped as suddenly as it started. The parking lot looked empty. The cameras showed nothing. And when we looked back at the snow globe by the doors, the masked figure inside wasn't there anymore. The globe was completely empty. Just swirling snow. And that's when the lights at the front of the store began turning off. One row at a time. Like something was walking past them. Coming closer. Step. 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 And then, the footsteps stopped. All the front lights were off except one, flickering above the entrance. The four of us stood frozen, staring at the glass doors, waiting for something, anything, to move. My manager finally whispered, "Everyone to the back." Now. We started walking, sticking close together, when the intercom clicked on again. This time, no breathing. A voice. Whispering. "Return, accepted." Every hair on my neck stood up. The manager shouted for the breakers to be shut off, but before anyone could move, the motion-activated lights near the doors flicked on. Someone was standing there. A tall figure. Face completely covered by a smooth white mask. Hands resting against the locked doors, like they were deciding whether to push harder, or just wait. The figure tilted its head slowly, unnaturally slowly, as if listening to something behind us. Then we heard it. A soft sound. Coming from the snow globe. The one by the door. The swirling snow inside began moving on its own, spinning faster and faster until it looked like a tiny blizzard trapped in glass. And through the storm, for 1 second, I saw it. A tiny masked figure inside the globe. Turning its head the exact same way as the real one outside. Our stalker grabbed the snow globe and threw it into the cart return bin. It shattered so hard the glass echoed across the entrance. And instantly, the figure outside stepped back. Not angrily. Not startled. Just as if it had finished what it came to do. It lifted one hand. Pressed a single finger against the glass. Then turned around and walked into the dark parking lot until it disappeared completely. We called the police. They checked the area. They checked the cameras. Nothing. No figure. No footprints in the frost. No signs anyone was ever there. But here's what still keeps me up at night. When we reviewed the footage of the snow globe breaking, there was no masked figure inside it. The camera showed the globe shatter on its own, as if it was empty the entire time. We never found the other globes after that night. Not in the aisles. Not in the stockroom. Not in the trash. They were just gone. I quit the job a week later. But sometimes, during the holidays, I swear I still hear that whisper when I'm alone in a store. Return accepted. The last shopper in aisle 14. If you've ever worked a holiday shift in retail, you know the feeling, the fake cheer, the frantic shoppers, the endless returns, the music that sounds cheerful only if you haven't heard it 1,000 times. I worked at a mid-sized department store in upstate New York. The kind that stayed open late during Christmas week. And one night, December 23rd, something happened that made me quit retail forever. It was 11:42 p.m. The store closed at midnight, and the last customers were dragging themselves to the registers. I was assigned to closing sweep, walking each aisle to make sure everything was empty before we shut the gate. The store felt eerie that night. Too quiet. Even the Christmas playlist sounded slowed down and warped. When I reached aisle 14, home decor, I saw a man standing with his back to me. Tall. Thin. Wearing a gray winter coat that looked wrong. Like it belonged to another decade. He stood perfectly still, facing the wall of decorative mirrors. "Sir, we're closing in 15 minutes, I said. He didn't move. I stepped closer, and something felt off immediately. His posture was too rigid, like someone holding their breath. "Sir?" I repeated. Still nothing. I considered tapping his shoulder, but something in my gut told me not to. Then I noticed his reflection in the mirror. Or rather, the lack of one. The mirror showed the aisle behind him. The shelves. The floor. But not him. I blinked hard, thinking my eyes were playing tricks on me. I stepped sideways, lining myself beside him. My reflection appeared normally. His did not. Before I could process it, he finally spoke. His voice was quiet, flat, almost rehearsed. "Do you return what is yours?" I stepped back. "Sir, the registers are at the front." He turned around. Very slowly. His face was pale, eyes unfocused, like he hadn't slept in days. But that wasn't the worst part. He was holding something. A small gift box with my name on it. My actual name, spelled correctly, written in neat handwriting across the tag. My heart dropped. "How did you?" I started, but he interrupted me by lifting one finger to his lips. Then he pressed the box into my hands. It was ice cold. Colder than his fingers, colder than the store, colder than winter outside. He leaned in slightly and whispered, "You dropped this earlier." I hadn't dropped anything. I hadn't even been in this aisle today. I opened the box. Inside was a tiny snow globe. But instead of a house or a tree, it showed a miniature version of aisle 14, the exact aisle we were standing in. The shelves were perfect. The end cap was perfect. Even the mirrors were perfect. And in the center of the snow globe was a tiny figure. A figure wearing my jacket. My name tag. My posture. I felt sick. I looked up to confront the man, but he was gone. No footsteps. No sound. Nothing. Just empty aisle. I rushed to the front of the store so fast that my manager asked if I was okay. I said someone was still inside, someone in aisle 14. She checked the cameras. And this part chills me the most. On the footage, I was walking down aisle 14 alone. Talking to empty space. Reaching my hands out to take something that wasn't there. No man. No coat. No gift box. Just me. I showed her the snow globe. "He gave me this." She turned it over in her hands and frowned. "Where did you get this?" she asked. "We don't sell anything like it." I said, "I told you, he gave it to me." She opened her mouth to say something, then stopped. Because the snow inside the globe had started swirling. Slowly at first. Then faster. Like a tiny blizzard trapped in glass. The figure inside, the one dressed like me, slowly turned its head until it was facing upward. Facing us. My manager screamed and dropped the globe. It shattered across the counter. But here's the part that made both of us freeze. The tiny figure inside didn't break. It slid across the counter like a piece of plastic, then stopped perfectly in the center. Standing upright. Facing me. Security closed the store early that night. No one could explain anything. The cameras showed nothing unusual. And every employee I talked to the next day told me they felt uneasy during closing but didn't know why. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that empty reflection in the mirror, and that tiny figure turning its head. I quit the next morning. But 2 weeks later, a plain white envelope arrived at my apartment. No sender. No stamps. Inside was a tag. The same style as the one on the gift box. My name was written on it. And underneath, in the same handwriting, was a single sentence. "You still haven't returned what is yours." I burned the tag immediately. But sometimes, when I walk past a store window or a shiny surface, I swear. For just a second. I don't see my reflection.